To them that are under the law as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. To them that are without law as without law, being not without law to God, but under the law to Christ, that I might gain them that are without law. To the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak. I made all things to all men, that I might be by all means save some. This is not pragmatism. This is not Paul saying do whatever is necessary in order to preach the gospel. The difference between pragmatism is that pragmatism involves compromise. Pragmatism means you do whatever it takes to get people to respond. And so what a pragmatic person would do would be to water down the gospel. In other words, we say, Jesus is a rocker to a rocker. Jesus is whatever, and they just redefine Jesus, and they try to get people to identify with what they make him to be. You don't change the gospel, but you can change yourself, can't you? Hey, if a poor person or a weak person would not be able to identify with a preacher that's never gone through what they've gone through, hey, don't come to them as a big shot, right? If an educated person, if an uneducated person, or have somebody that has high intellectual learning, don't come to them and say, hey, I want you to know I'm really educated, and say, yeah, listen to me because I'm educated. The gospel message has nothing to do with what you are. The gospel message has to do with who Jesus is. Now, you just take the gospel to the Jews and don't offend them. Don't be offensive in it. And I'm not talking about change the gospel. I'm just talking about how you behave. Hey, don't come to the Jews and say your law is stupid. And I don't need to wash my hands before I eat. And I don't need to do the whole... No, you can be polite about those things. It's not a compromise to take a higher standard. And so you do that. With the Gentiles, it's like, well, you guys, you need to understand that you need to be kosher here. You get a bunch of pork-eating heathens. You need to do things right. No, you don't reach the Gentiles that way. You go eat pork with them. Then they're weak. Well, it really bothers me that people think that they can do this and this and this and this. And you say, well, I do that. Now let me tell you about Jesus. Now you refrain from things that are hurtful to someone. You understand this? Preaching the gospel practically. Not pragmatically, but practically. Okay, so now, what is the benefit of the gospel then? Paul said, I do receive a reward for preaching the gospel. I don't preach for a reward, but I receive a reward. He said, I have methods for preaching the gospel. I respect culture. Jew, Gentile, weak. He said, my purpose of preaching, of respecting the culture, my purpose of being all things to all men, that I might by all means save some, he said, is so I can preach the gospel. Do what's necessary to preach the gospel. So I'm all about preaching the gospel. Do you get that about the Apostle Paul? That there's not anything in the world that he's more about than preaching the gospel, the cross of Jesus Christ. What are the benefits? Well, he's a partaker. This I do for the gospel's sake, that I might be a partaker thereof with you. Okay. I don't know what your favorite meal is. I don't know what your favorite dinner is. But most people that have a favorite, at some level, ought to be able to prepare their favorite dinner. Brother Paco, what's your favorite? What do you like best?
These days?
Yeah.
Some sprouted green pasta.
Sprouted green pasta. You know how to cook that?
It's an Ezekiel bread.
You know how to cook it?
Yeah.
Okay. Charlie? Well, I'm almost scared to ask. What is? I mean, just right off the top of your, be honest with you. I'm giving you a hard time no matter what it is. So, what would it be?
It's plantain rice with red beans, and it's ground beef.
Oh, that's Colombian. That's understandable. Okay. Plantain rice, red beans, and ground beef. Can you cook that?
Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. Price, what's my favorite meal? What's my favorite thing?
Change it.
It's always something, huh? Give me a for instance, something I'd enjoy a lot. What?
Steak and potatoes.
Steak and potatoes. Can I cook that? Yes. Okay. How about coming to... I'm joking. I mean, it's an illustration. It's not for real. How about coming over after the service, and I'm going to cook you guys some of the best steak and potato you've ever had. I mean, I'm going to do the potatoes right. We're not talking about here throw them in the oven. We're going to soak them in lard, and then we're going to Oh yeah, brother. Put some sprouts on them too. Put some lard all over them. Some garlic. And some onion salt. And then we're going to put a drip pan in the oven. We're not going to wrap them in aluminum foil because we want the potato skins to get real thick. You're supposed to eat potato skins. It's the best part of the potato. And so you cook them and they get real hard solid. And I'm going to grill the steak to perfection. It's already been marinating for a couple of days, and it is in a nice cold place in the ice box in a tub, and I've got my secret recipe on it. And I'll cook it. You want it rare, I'll cook it rare. You want it well done, I'll cook it well. I'll cook it how you like it, but it'll be juicy, regardless. And then Paco will make a little salad go alongside it. So come over. Pastor, that sounds like a lot of work for you. I tell you what, I wouldn't mind the work. I don't have time this afternoon to make that meal. I don't have it actually marinated. I tell you, the main thing would be just paying for the steak. Stuff gets kind of expensive, and salad's expensive too. But if I had the money for it, I'd be glad to cook it for you. I'd be glad to cook it for you. By the way, I'd boil some lobster. We have a lobster tail right on the side of our steak, or just some really nicely done shrimp. And I'd be glad to cook it for you. You know why? Because we're all going to sit down at the same time and eat. And Paul said, I'm a partaker of the gospel of which I preach. I said, I'm being fed as well. I said, part of my reward is that when I preach the gospel, I've been saved by it. And I've had victory by it, and I get the answers to prayer that I'm preaching about for you. And the ministry that I have to you, I've been ministered to as well. Part of my reward is I'm a partaker. It's a lot easier to invite somebody to something that you're going to be a part of, huh? Hey, why don't you go to a steak and lobster dinner? Hey, let's have a steak and lobster dinner. I like steak and lobster. How about you? Now you have to be all things to all men. You might have to like sprouts and what was it?
Sprouted grain pasta.
And Charlie's red beans and rice and plantains and ground beef. I'll bet you done right, any of that could be good. That does sound good. Hey, I'd be glad to cook it if I got to eat it. Right? And Paul said, I've been saved by it. And so it's not anything to say, hey, now I'm going to tell you guys about the best meal in the world. I'll tell you about the best meal in the world, and you should come have it. I'm eating it. So I'm going to preach the gospel of something. I've had lost people recommend people to get saved. I'm serious, I've had lost people say, you know what? You need to go talk to Pastor Price. What you need is, and they've recommended it. It's on a whole different level when you say, you know what, I was saved. It was very good for me. And you should be saved as well. We preach the gospel not because God owes us something, but woe is us if we don't. We preach the gospel not just because of a reward, but because we're a partaker. The last thing I want to see this morning as we conclude are some of the benefits of gospel preaching. Paul says, I'm a partaker of them, and he says, then not just the benefits, he says, here's the manner in which we preach. So this is how you do it. He says, it's what we're all about. It's what I'm all about. I preach the gospel not because you could hire me to. I preach the gospel not because I need something from you. I said I preach the gospel because that's what I'm all about. That's what my life's all about. And because I'm a partaker in it. And because it would be an awful thing to stand before God if I didn't. So there's all kind of reasons. Some can be negative, some can be positive. But partaking's getting on a better level, isn't it? I'm preaching it because it's good. That's a better level than just be awful if I didn't. Hey, how about going soul winning because you've been saved and it was really good for you and you want to tell other people about it? It's a little different when you go that way, isn't it? Hey, you're less ashamed of it that way, aren't you? Well, you're probably not interested in this, but let me just tell you about something that could happen to you if you trust Christ. It's a matter of, I wasn't interested, but when God saved me, He changed my life, and I'm telling you, He can change anybody's life. He can save anybody. And He wants to save you, and He's provided for it in the person of Jesus Christ through the cross of Christ, His death, His burial, and His resurrection. You just believe on Him, He'll save you, and it'll change your life. It's a good message. It's a good message, and we've partaken.